I 28 female broke up with my boyfriend Steve 31 male 6 months ago. We had been living together and after the breakup I gave him plenty of time to find a new place. He kept saying things like, I just need a little more time, the market's crazy and I can't find a place that allows ferrets. He doesn't have a ferret, I don't know why. He said that. Fast forward to month 6. And this man is still leaving beard trimmings in the sink and playing Skyrim. Until 3:00 a.m. I was losing it, so naturally I decided to haunt my own apartment. It started small whispers. Through the vents, flickering lights. I bought an old porcelain doll from Facebook Marketplace and moved it to different locations every night. I whispered, "Get out, Steven," into my phone, slowed it down 800% and made it play from inside the walls via a Bluetooth speaker. I even got my friend, who does special effects makeup, to pretend to be a Victorian child ghost in the hallway mirror. Steve started losing sleep. He saged the place, bought holy water, and started talking to the doll like it was real. Then one night he packed a bag, looked me dead in the eyes and said, "The spirits have chosen you. I can't fight them anymore," and he left. Now he's living with his sister. I've reclaimed my space. The doll is in my closet and sometimes I still whisper at it for fun. Now here's where it gets spicy. Steve found out it was me. My friend posted behind the scenes pic of the ghost makeup on her Instagram. He saw it and messaged me a very long paragraph calling me a manipulative monster with a flair for the theatrical, which honestly was kind of flattering. My friends are Archie, half say I'm a genius and deserve a Netflix deal. The other half say I should have just kicked him out the normal way and that gaslighting via ghost might be ethically questionable. So am I the idiot for faking a full-on haunting to evict my emotionally clingy ex? Not the idiot. He had 6 months to move out and still didn't get the hint. If he's emotionally clingy enough to stay in a breakup for that long, a little paranormal push doesn't sound too over the top. He'll have plenty of time to reflect on his spirits while living at his sister's. I laughed while reading this. You didn't evict him, you exorcised him. He overstayed and made up a ferret excuse. Ferret, you made a show out of it. He got an exit and you got your peace. When honestly, 6 months to live with someone you no longer love is a real torture. I'd be gone in 1 month max. Sometimes a problem needs an out of the box solution. Anot, I love that. For you, I'd be proud too. The ferret detail made me laugh because it reminded me of trying to get my ex, who hadn't paid rent for months, out of our shared apartment with a roommate when I was still but a wee 18-year-old. He kept saying he couldn't move out till he found a pet-friendly apartment. Despite not having a pet, we settled for my roomie's very large and intimidating stepfather, who was a sweetheart, but he didn't need to know that. Coming over and asking him pointedly if he needed a ride or help transporting his things to his parents in the most over-the-top New Jersey Italian-American accent made that sheltered, never been outside a California idiot turn pale as a ghost and fully convinced him that he somehow got on the wrong side of the mob, packed his crap up and got the heck out in almost no time. Lol, never got the $750 he owed me, but worth it for him. Permanently out of my life. Op, better be careful though. By pretending that her house is haunted, she risk offending the ghosts who are already there. I recommend using a spirit board to communicate with the real ghost and make sure they're okay with the fake ghost. Spirit board, I don't know. Going over to one of my friend's houses used to give me bad vibes. Not quite someone watching you, but definitely that uncomfortable feeling. It wasn't until her father redid some of the wiring that they realized a lot of the wiring in the house was damaged and done incorrectly. Check the wiring before you buy old houses, people, so sometimes it's not so much the ghost as your brain is telling you that it doesn't want to be in a house that might burn down. My wife, 32, is very close to my 33 male family. We were childhood best friends and high school sweethearts. We've been together for 18 years. They've known her all that time and my mom adores her. They're incredibly close. Actually, my mom has a good relationship with all but One of her children's partners, my younger brother's Aiden, 29 male wife. 27 is the exception. Aiden married Jim. Last year, they dated for a couple of years before that. At first we all got along pretty well with Jim, but she suddenly started being an idiot to my wife. It started with very subtle comments that my wife said were nothing, and I was just overreacting, while others would joke that my wife was my mom's favorite kid. Jim would sound bitter and jealous, then her comments turned to mean about it, the jokes about it, which were never very frequent, stopped afterward, but Jim would bring it up anyway. Then it was comments about how exhausting it must be for my wife to have so many people who want her time and attention. Those were sparked by my siblings' partners also getting along with my wife, not to mention my mom and my wife hanging out, and then my wife and I have kids together. I asked Jim what her problem was, spoke to Aiden one-on-one as well, and others spoke up to defend my wife. Jim's biggest issue has always appeared to be my mom and wife being close. I don't know why it drives her crazy, but it does. Now Aiden's frustrated because Jim isn't included like my wife and the other partners. The fact is, my mom will do days with her daughters-in-law and Jim isn't invited, or that my wife will do girl stuff with the women in our family, but she doesn't include Jim because eventually she got sick of Jim's crap. 2. She was better than me at brushing it off for a while, but I think anyone would get annoyed by someone always treating them like crap, so Aiden came to me hopping. I'd advocate for Jim to be included. He said she just feels left out and wants to be included. I told him she has a funny way of showing it. He said she knows she messed up, but to give her another chance for him. I told him I wasn't going to advocate for his wife's inclusion when she was so rude to mine. I told him he needs to get Jim to make it up to everyone and work toward her inclusion, or else she'll stay an outsider. I told him that I get that his loyalty is with his wife, but mine always be with my wife. He told me someone on our side needs to try, or Jim will feel like she's wasting her time. I told him it's not on me. He tried to pull some brotherhood crap, and I told him to knock it off and accept my answer. He hates that. My wife said she'd have no problem if Jim apologized and actually stopped with her comments, and she's glad I told Aiden what Jim needed to do. Aiden keeps telling me I was an idiot and could have done more. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Jim is a pain. She started this mess and it's on her to fix it. Why would you want to include someone who's rude all the time? It is unpleasant to be around, and on top of that won't even apologize for their behavior. Just because he's your bro doesn't mean his wife's bad behavior is okay. You've done the right thing and defended your wife. There's more to unpack here. I get where Aiden's coming from too. He's in a tough spot. His wife feels left out, and he's probably dealing with her venting about how isolated she feels. Could you have been softer with Aiden? Jim's realizing that her kids will also face the burden of bridges she burned. No babysitting by in-laws or siblings. We know why Aiden's talking to up. He thought it would be easier to manipulate his brother into brushing off Jim's rude and wholly toxic behavior than to tell her she needs to own up to her toxic behavior, because he knows she won't. Aiden frankly is also alienating himself from his side of the family. People need to understand, while they might not mind their spouse's crappy or toxic behavior, or simply put up with it, other people, including family, don't have to tolerate that person, even if it is family or an in-law. No one is entitled to be someone's life just because they're titled to that person in some way, i.e. parents, siblings, in-laws, etc. Jim sounds incredibly immature. She definitely emotionally immature, because children act that way, not grown adults. I, 50 male, am a single father to my son teen. His mom, my then girlfriend, got addicted and walked out shortly after he was born. She's no longer in our lives. My son has been making exceptional grades, and he plays for his high school's baseball team. He's pretty good at that, though my opinion may be a little biased. Law, that was until he started dating a girl, nearly adult female. They met when she was assigned as partner on a project, and I guess They hit it off pretty fast because this came out of the blue for me when I picked him up one day and he just said, "Dad, I have a girlfriend now." I was proud and excited for him that my son was finally becoming a man. I also had a remedial version of the talk with him. You can never be too careful. They've been dating for the past few months and they seem very happy together, but my problem is that my son's grades have been slipping. He's been skipping out on chores at the house and missing practice. In games, I'm not mad that he's dating. However, that should come after business, school and baseball, etc. So last week I told him that he's no longer allowed to spend time with her unless he gets his act together. He responded, "But Dad, I really like this girl." I told him, "That doesn't matter. If you flunk out of school, I don't want you seeing her and that's final." He sighed and said, "Fine." I figured that was the end of it, well, until yesterday, when I returned from the store and I found them on a living room couch together. He lied to me and said he'd have a friend over to study. My son froze like a deer in headlights. I told him to go to his room and then I turned to his girlfriend. Now I'll admit I might have been a little stern, but I told her to get the heck out of my house and stay away from my son. He doesn't need this distraction, and if I ever catch you two together again, it won't be pretty for either of you. Then the waterworks started and she stormed out. I go upstairs to my son, who's already on the phone telling my mother and my sister, who have always spoiled him. I take the phone and try to explain, but I get lectured for being too hard on him. He's just a boy, etc. I'm just trying to keep my son from ruining his life before it starts. If he fixes his grades and everything, he can see her again. So I figured it'd be best to get an unbiased third-party opinion. Am I the idiot? You're allowed to be angry your son did lie to you and go behind your back, but holy Christ, on a bike, that is no excuse to threaten anyone. You're a 50-year-old man, right? How hard would it have been, in a calm manner, to simply ask your son's girlfriend to leave and then go and talk to your son about what happened? Your son's girlfriend is not responsible for his actions and choices. You are the idiot. Also, finally becoming a man. Lo, this coming from a guy who let his anger get the better of him and threatened a teenage girl. If you know so much about being a man, apologize to your son and especially to his girlfriend. What exactly did you mean by it won't be pretty for either of you? Whatever you meant by it, it sounded like a physical threat, and to say it to a young girl who's alone in the room with you, seriously, what the heck is wrong with you? The poor girl is probably terrified. If she were my daughter, I'd be furious. Honestly, your whole post drips of disdain for women. FYI, it's your son's fault that his grades are slipping and no one else's. Yes, if it's anything centuries of classic love stories have as a catalyst, it is the overwhelming support of the parents. You're bang on the right track there. Yes, I can't see any glaringly obvious problem with adding a forbidden romance element to their young lives. Heck, were you born 50? Update. Okay, so first I'd like to thank everyone for giving me this well-deserved, years-long overdue attitude adjustment. I was an idiot in this situation, while I was in the right to worry about my son's academic performance and his responsibilities at home. I'll admit that I let my temper get the best of me, and I acted impulsively with how I handled the situation. I shouldn't have yelled at that girl. After talking to my son, it turns out that he never told her that he wasn't allowed to see her. She didn't know, and I should have gone to my son instead of taking it out on her. My job plus the past trauma from my ex leaving are not stresses that I can self-manage anymore. I'm done lying to myself, and I will be looking into therapy soon. My son has invited her over for dinner later this week. I plan to apologize and explain the situation, and I'll try to work with them to have fair rules that will encourage my son to stop slacking off while also allowing him to spend time with her. You get more flies with honey than vinegar, and prohibition will only make my son lie and sneak around, which could lead to him doing dangerous and irresponsible things. I showed my son some of the comments and he's been laughing his Idiot off at everyone roasting me, lol. Thanks. I live in an apartment with my grandmother. A week ago I got home from work to find my grandmother in her room, resting in my sister and her young toddler son in my living room. She's also pregnant. This is normal and happens often. I usually keep to myself, but I enjoy their company when they're here. However, every time I've come home to find them in my apartment, the place is a mess. This time a couch and dining chairs have been moved. There's food, dominoes, kitchen pans, and pillows on the floor. I have to step over stuff to walk towards my room. Things originally placed on the floor have been moved to the top of the dining table and counters. As someone who has issues with change and OCD, it causes me stress and discomfort. I would like things to remain the way they were when I left them before work. I was going to let it be and went to shower. Once done, I went and joined my sister on the couch to spend time with my nephew. The conversation switched to the issue. She said it wasn't a mess, she only moved things to block him and she always cleaned them up before she left. I said it's not her apartment to rearrange and that it's her job and the father's job to keep him from stuff he shouldn't touch. She said all I wanted to do was trap him and restrain him and not let him be a young, curious boy. I disagreed and said we shouldn't have to move anything when they come over. It's not their space to make perfect for them. This argument got pretty heated as conflict resolution is not in our genetics. She at one point told me to get out and I said I live here, you don't, so you should leave. This led to my grandmother coming out of her room in perfect timing for my sister to start ranting about how I'd be a terrible mother, that as soon as her ride arrived she'd be gone and she would never come back. I said that's her choice, that I wasn't kicking her out permanently and that I just wanted the apartment to remain the way I'd set it up. I know she actually can't leave since she's waiting for a ride. My grandmother gets upset because her coming over here is the only way she can see her and the baby. Since my grandmother's disabled, I should have fair say in what happens at the apartment, whether I pay rent or not, since we both sign the lease and I help her with other things besides finances. Unfortunately, I knew she'd take my sister's side since she is her favorite, even though we had a private discussion a few nights prior during which she agreed with me. My sister begins cleaning up the area. I just walked to my room and closed the door. Not too long after the boyfriend arrives to pick them up, I hear through my door my sister again saying she isn't coming back. Then I said she's a bad mother and he's a bad father, which didn't happen, and some other insults. They gathered their things, said goodbye to my grandmother and left. So am I the idiot? So as I read this isn't actually your apartment and you don't pay rent. It's your grandmother's place, and does she pay for all of it? Up. Unfortunately, what your sister did is a complete non-issue if she moves the stuff back when she leaves, given that it isn't your stuff she's moving and your grandmother doesn't have an issue with it. You are the idiot. Also, the sister moved a bunch of stuff like chairs and cushions to block the toddler. How unreasonable is that she made a baby gate to keep the kid the room that she was also sitting in up. Can't seriously be this rigid. Yeah. I read dining chairs being moved and I instantly thought of my visits to my dad's house. He had some gorgeous cabinets full of some fragile, sentimental items. We moved dining chairs to create a super special kids fort. It just so happens the fort completely blocks access to a study, so the kids can't touch those display cases. Parents need to pee sometimes, and it's nice to know my kids won't cause thousands of dollars of damage just because I had a necessary bodily function. I can't believe Op is this self-centered and foolish. This kid is a toddler. He doesn't yet understand. Don't touch that. You're being unfair to her. It seems like she's trying, but you're just only focusing on what she's doing wrong. Do you really expect no one to move anything at all? I'm sorry, but if that's the case, get a place with no one else, because that's too much to ask. You're using your OCD as an excuse to treat people awful and be a tyrant. It's easy to see why your grandma would usually be on your sister's side, and it's not because she's the favorite. It's just that you're unreasonable.